Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Dare Me. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. We do see the continuation of the whole Colette and Addie thing of her babysitting, which is like, I'm surprised her husband never caught that, but I guess it's a thing of like, you know his work schedule, you know when he's going to be home, so it's easier to kind of, plan out your getaways with Will while Addie watches your baby, which is like, in the grand scheme of things, it's like, that's definitely like a big no-no, and you shouldn't be doing that. In the grand scheme of things, it wouldn't be that shady, because it's like, oh, she's around that age, so maybe she could use the babysitting money. You could make that not the weird situation that it is, but the circumstances make it the weird situation that it is. But and the fact is, and that's the thing, for Colette, it doesn't seem so wrong. It just seems like, yeah, thanks for doing this for me, Addie. It's like, oh yeah, and she's like, yeah, it's no problem. Babies are easy and stuff like that. But it's interesting because at the same time, because Addie keeps blowing off any time spent with Beth, she's spending it with Colette. So obviously Beth is a little soured by it, just because it's kind of like, oh, Addie's not here, so whatever, but it's like, obviously, it bothers her. And now we get into the whole thing of like, okay, so it's a conversation about the whole Tassie situation. Obviously Colette keeps pushing that, and everyone else is talking mad shit. It's like, but the whole point is like, that's just kind of like, the whole point is for the squad to come together, but they look at her as like, oh, she's the weak link and stuff like that, which is the point. For Colette, it's like, literally, Tassie is the weakest link, but the fact of the matter is, as a group, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So for those who aren't as strong, the strong are supposed to be there to kind of lift them up and compensate, essentially, but obviously, it's more of a like, they devour the weak rather than helping the weak. They devour the weak, so now it's in that complicated thing, because obviously it's like, because there's a whole conversation that Colette had with Addie about like, okay, so if you why didn't you ever think about leading a group? But it's like, no, Beth has always led because she's better and stuff like that. It's like, oh yeah, but the fact of the matter is, if you have the drive and push to do it, you could be like the head of the squad and everything. But I don't think Addie would ever think about doing that, because this is Beth's, and whether she realizes it or not, whether it's like she does realize it or whether it's a subconscious thing, I think she recognizes that the squad means so much to Beth, so she doesn't want to take that away from her, because this is like her best, this is like her BFF, and like she felt like if she took that position, she'd be screwing over her BFF, and it's like, so she would never do anything. Like Addie always never goes against that, and that's why it's interesting, because I feel like Addie kind of loses herself in Beth, in a sense of, it's hard to say who's the real Addie, because when she's just kind of like, she acts like she's part of the clique sometimes, but then other moments she doesn't throughout the episode. So that's why it's kind of hard to determine like what's really Addie and what's just her going with the flow of like what Beth would want and what the other girls would kind of want. Because obviously, because of the whole Tassie situation, they're doing it over and over again. But then I was thinking at some point, maybe Addie would stand up for Tassie or something. But it's like, no, she's not going to. So that's why I'm like, I'm not sure where she stands in the grand scheme of things, because part of me wonders, does she hate Tassie because Beth hates her, or did she kind of have the same thing as kind of like that mean girl thing of like, oh, you're so JV, you're out of our, like, you're being put at the top, but you're not good at, like, I'm wondering, like, what does that come from? Is it just because Beth hates her, or is it because she knows of Beth's complicated family situation, so that makes her... It's a combination because Beth hates her, but also because of their family situation that makes Addie hate her, because it's kind of like, you're the enemy and I'm not going to go against my girl type. It's, like, I don't know what to really make of that, Come skipping around a bit, but like there's the whole ice bath situation, because it wasn't just Abby, and it wasn't just Addie, and it wasn't just Beth. Literally, the entire squad is like ice challenge, like ice off or whatever, and it's like everyone was edging that on. I mean, to be fair, like, it's almost like Beth wanted to do that because it's like apparently like a tradition or whatever, but more so than anything, Beth wanted to do that because Tassie fell and hurt her shoulder, and it's just like, Beth just wanted an excuse to kind of hurt Tassie, but like during the challenge, she was expecting Tassie to actually back down, and the fact that she didn't, I think, actually kind of concerned her. It was like, wow, I don't like you, but I don't want you to die, or I don't know what. I guess there was a part of her that thought, oh, I thought you chicken out. You're literally willing to kind of go down swinging for this. So, I mean, because everyone was kind of cheering on, and then everyone got super quiet because they saw how much she was shaking, and she literally passes out in the water. But then it's like, you know, Addie's one of the ones that comes over and rescues her and everything, which, you know, yeah, Beth giving her jacket, and she's like, whatever about it, you know? It's like she gives it, like, so it's hard to say how anyone really feels, because it's like I said, Beth doesn't want her dead, but other instances, it seemed like Beth wants her dead, you know? So it's like, I don't know what to make of that. I mean, I guess you're a teenager. You're entitled to. You definitely at that time, your emotions are all over the place. You haven't figured yourself out, so it makes sense character-wise, especially considering all the drama that is her family. Like, of course, you're going to be feeling the way you do, but it's like, so it's understandable that it's hard to really kind of pinpoint where they, you know, stand in the grand scheme of things. So I just think that's, you know, fascinating, but. Like I said, I'm skipping around and everything, but it seemed like she snaps at Tassie later on, because Tassie was like, oh, thanks. And she looked annoyed, like, oh, I hate that you're talking to me and thanking me. I shouldn't have helped you out. And it's like, I don't get why you're doing that. Because you were literally, the others was like, hey, you want a drink? And she was like, no, I'm good. So it's like, oh, so you're being, I was like, oh, so you're turning down the bad choices. Look at you. You're turning things, because not just you, literally everyone's drinking, because Colette's kind of like saying like, yeah, it's a good thing. Make sure you have enough for everyone, you know, type of situation. I mean, obviously everything changed the moment Colette had started dancing with her husband. You can see that Addie had gotten annoyed, and I guess that kind of snapped her back to who she was before, and being like, you know what, you know, Colette had said some stuff, but like maybe Addie wasn't listening to that anymore, so she snaps at Tassie, because it's like, you could have easily gotten out of the bath, but it's like, come on, like, you all kind of pressured her into that situation, and just because I guess it's like, Tassie, don't get it twisted. I'm not on your side. You're talking about, oh, Beth could be psycho sometimes and crazy. That's my BFF. Don't, you know? Because it's all circled back to the fact is that weird and complicated thing of like, well, the fact is, like, her husband, like Colette's husband, you know, Matt shows up early, and it's like, and then Addie comes up with an excuse of like, oh, hey, like, there's this spot where we can go train and stuff like that, covering for Colette. So it's like becoming a part of the lie. Hell, even later on, Colette was like, you know, Addie, you know, she could be a good babysitter, even though you secretly had a babysitting your child without your husband knowing. But regardless, it's like trying to make it more official. This way, she can have an excuse to like, oh, if he ever comes home and finds Addie there, which I'm like, I'm surprised you didn't think of that sooner. But it's just like, oh, but it's like, oh, have you seen Addie enough? And it's like, oh, like, hey, why don't we kind of make this, you know, kind of give me an alibi so I can go, you know, hang out with Will type of situation. Obviously without letting her husband know, but she hung around Will and Colette, and they're kind of cute and everything, and even, you know, Colette letting her fly and kind of lifting her up high. And I think in that moment, she just, you know, being on top and just kind of spreading your wings essentially, and just kind of breathing in the moment of just kind of like, okay, so that's what it's, because I guess she's never been on top ever, so I guess like to kind of feel that for once, and it's kind of like, is this what you want? There was even that moment of like, you know, Colette being like, oh, I see it in your eyes, you want something you can't have. And then she looks at Colette, and I'm like, is this but then Will was kind of like, oh, I know you want to be at the top, you know, that like any girl your age would be. And she was like, no, it's not like that. But I think it's that thing of like feeling it for the first time, like that might have been her first time ever being like high up and on top like that. So it's a you know, it's a certain feeling and accomplishment. But in the moment, it was the moment Will had interjected like that, I was like, wait, are you? And then you tie that in with her looking at Matt and Colette. Colette is what she wants. Because I kept going back and forth, because I couldn't tell 100% of like whether or not she just heavily admires Colette, or she wants to be with Colette. This episode heavily points to, oh, she wants to be with Colette. Seeing Colette with someone else kind of annoys her a little bit. You know, even seeing her with her husband and everything, it just kind of annoys her, because I don't know if she's really figured that out, but I don't know. I think that's why she kind of snapped back, because she was kind of getting seduced by, like, you know, what, you know, Colette was saying and everything, and it just kind of pissed her off. I mean, it's interesting because the entire episode is this whole thing of, like, Beth one time said love is just an is a kind of killer. And, you know, once again, it's a very pessimistic view of love. It's this borderline optimistic and pessimistic look, because it's like, oh, love is this beautiful thing, yet what happens in love? You break someone's heart, and the fact of the matter is, you want to stop. You should stop, but you don't want to, you know, type of situation, almost treating love like an addiction, you know. So like I said, it's like this pessimistic almost view of it, you know, which, because of her upbringing, you can look at Beth's situation and be like, I can understand why you'd be very pessimistic when it comes to the concept of love, you know. I don't know if you can honestly, I think you can honestly say there's probably one person in Beth's life that she loves. I'd say that's Addie. I honestly don't think she loves anyone else in her life. Maybe that's me. I mean, and the sad thing is, I think you could honestly say Beth doesn't even love herself. It's a sad, messed up truth. I think that's something, there's something there to it as well. You know, she's hooking up with home dude who, you know, with the military too. He's under, you know, Will, and she's like, oh, like, do you ever hear Will? Because you guys live next to each other. Him bringing, basically asking, without saying her name, but kind of insinuating whether or not it's Colette or not that he's, you know, shacking up with. She still has the video, or in the picture, well, more so the video of them shacking up. She hasn't done anything with it. She just looks at it, and I'm like, I don't know, Colette's going to do something that really pisses her off, and that's going to push her over the edge and send her, but, you know, we'll see. Like I said, it's just that thing of, like, she's partying because she's trying to fill some hole in her heart that I think she thinks and hopes that things are going to get filled, but they don't. Like, who Addie kind of, like, legitimately, and I've talked about this, I've kind of, when I was a teenager, I went through that thing of, like, making someone your everything. I literally had a girlfriend, I made my everything, and, like, no one person should be your entire happiness. And that's what I think Addie is for Beth. Like, without Addie, she feels a hole in the heart that she can't feel. And that's the thing, that's a lot of pressure to put on one person. That one person to be your entirety, your love, your friendship, their happiness. That's a lot to put on one person's shoulders, and I don't think Addie really realizes that yet, but I think that's what she represents for Beth. So, like, when her and Beth are on the outs, it's like, yeah, you're my ride or die. Like, I would literally die without you, you know, because how, like, legitimately, I think Addie, because even one of the girls was kind of like, oh yeah, like, the fact is, Beth always tends to go too far, but Lieutenant Addie always kind of rails her back in, you know. So, I mean, reels her back in is the word. Rails? I know reels is the right word, but I'm like, what? Why did I say rails? Regardless, going on a tangent, but still. Because it's interesting, because, like, the past 2 episodes, she's basically been trying to replace Addie, because Addie hadn't been hanging out as much. I mean, she wanted to kind of be like, no, let's hang out, but it's like, oh, you got other things to do. Don't do anything I wouldn't do type of situation, you know? So I'm curious what would happen if Beth found out about what Addie had been doing. She probably will eventually, and she's going to probably blow a gasket, because, you know, that's probably what's going to push her to be like, wait, you're spending so much time with Coach. That's probably what she's going to do, send a video and everything to destroy Colette, just so that she can, in her own way, destroy everything so that, you know, Addie will come back to her type of situation. You know, maybe she wants to ruin things for Colette and Addie just so that she can have her back. But it's, like I said, it seems like there's a complicated thing, because it seems like Addie wants Colette, but Colette's kind of caught between 2 men anyway, like between her husband Matt and Will. And that's the thing too. Like, I also said this, I'm not even sure anymore, because I thought it doesn't seem like Colette is into Addie. It seems like she kind of looks at her as like, oh yeah, like you remind me of a younger me. You know, I was literally you not too long ago. So that's the kind of feeling vibe I get. But like I said, I don't think she thinks of Addie the same way Addie thinks about her. At least the way things are kind of implying and, you know, pointing in that direction, you know, so I'm interested to see where things kind of go from here, like, because we talked about how Addie's feeling, but the rest of the squad's kind of more on board with Colette, because she had that speech and they kind of partied it up at her house. But the fact of the matter is, she's talking about, like, the fact is, you take all these experiences and they will, like, your muscles will grow. Like, the fact is, your scars will be a badge of honor. You know, basically you'll realize that pain equals pleasure, which that immediately makes me think of that Siler song, Dark Haze. No pain means no pleasure. I was about to sing it, but I was like, I'm not about to do that. Not about to embarrass myself. But yeah, it just kind of made me think of that. So which is also kind of like I'm sure maybe from an athletic standpoint, that phrase of pain equals pleasure. I don't know. Still, that's just kind of like I guess it's, I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense because it's like, you know, with like, I mean, if you take it from another perspective of like, kind of like love comes with like both good and bad. Like, obviously, when you love, you can love, but also at the same time, opening yourself up to love also means opening yourself up to hurt. Hurt is just proof that you care. More Kingdom Hearts stuff I'm throwing out there just because that line always stuck out to me. I'm like, oh, because I think that one specifically from Kingdom Hearts 3, because hurt is proof that you care about someone. You wouldn't be hurt if that meant if you didn't care about someone. It's kind of the point I was trying to make. Regardless, it's a twisted thing when you put it there of being like, oh, pain is pleasure. It's like, I don't think a coach should be telling people that, but hell, a coach literally shouldn't be drinking with her students who are super underage. But hey, I'm super. You get what I'm saying, you know. But it's just. It's, once again, it's just a messy situation. So I think it's almost in the sense of kind of like, well, you can probably make the argument Colette hasn't really left behind her glory days, like, because her husband was like, oh yeah, I'm sure like hanging around the girls kind of reminds you of all the friends you had in high school. And she was like, I had no friends in high school. So it's like, okay, so like there's some, you can break it down from a psychological standpoint of like, because Colette had no friends, like being with the squad and everything, and her friendship with Addie, it's because maybe her mind is kind of trapped there. I mean, especially considering the fact that her and Will go back that far, so them rekindling their romance is like picking up from there. So like Colette's kind of mind, body, and soul, it's kind of, you know, it's that thing of like she was kind of pushed in a certain direction that she thought her life wanted to be. She's, you know, she's married, she has a child, like she's super adulting. She probably never had time to really just enjoy being a teenager, just party it up, because she didn't really have any friends. And it's like she's overcompensating for that now, trying to make up for not having that in her past, is kind of, you know, where the kind of feeling I get. Another interesting element to this is Tassie and Beth's dad comes to her and is like, oh yeah, the competition stuff. It's like, oh yeah, my daughters, they've got to be driving you wild because like the way they, like, you know, are they killing it out there or are they just killing each other? The fact is, he was even suggesting like, hey, why don't we do some editing to the video? Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. We can just edit it. Because, like, I'm sure a lot of people are like, yeah, a lot of people are editing it. So, obviously, you have Colette wanting to keep this very professional. She doesn't want to cheat. She wants to make everything perfect and get the girls to the regionals. Because a lot is riding on that, including the town. They're kind of like what's going to jumpstart, obviously, getting the arena built and everything like that so that they can bring in more money into the town and stuff like that. So like, so much is riding on Colette. So it's like, is she going to go to that point, or is she just going to keep pushing the girls? It's going to be interesting to see. Then there's the thing at the end. I don't know how to interpret that. Like the whole, like, I mean, I get it from a like friend slash like athletic standpoint, like rubbing the oil on each other and stuff. But part of me is like, is there something there too? Is that just kind of like, oh, we're girlfriends, we do that type of stuff? Or I'm like, or is that supposed to be like I don't know if that's supposed to mean more. Because if it means more, you can understand, like, you can understand why things would be the issues that they are, because there's like this maybe like sexual tension between them as friends. Maybe it might not, like, that whole like ride or die thing might go beyond, you know, I don't know what to make of that. Well, because, like, you know, Addie's talking about the fact is that one day Beth had told her, like, one day you're going to break my heart. But she's kind of like, oh, I never would do that. But, you know, it's like, you kind of get the feeling like it's all foreshadowing, like, what finally pushes Beth over the edge is Addie breaking her heart, like, in whatever means that is, whether it's her finding out about Colette and that whole situation. What I thought was kind of, you know, fascinating was even Will was kind of like, oh, is your friend okay? And it's like, you know, it's like, oh, you know, she gets like that sometimes. But Will's kind of suggesting that the fact of the matter is there might be more to that. Like, you know, because Addie's trying to be like, she'd never hurt anyone. But he was like, I'm more so worried she's going to hurt herself, because Beth shows, I mean, it's not even just showing signs. Everything she does, it shows how basically self-destructive she can be. And people who can be self-destructive can, you know, sadly destroy a lot of people around them. They kind of, when they implode, they kind of take a lot of stuff with them. Or in her, rather imploding, it's exploding. Or maybe a combination of the two. I don't know. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of where that all ends up taking us. Where Beth and Colette are going to stand, considering, like, hey, like I said, Colette kind of got cool with the rest of the squad. Not so much Beth, because Beth avoided that. It's like, well, twice, like, this is the second time, like, there's been, like, a meet-up huddle, and, you know, like, talk of, like, yeah, let's do this without Beth. This is the second time that's happened, so it's like, what that means, you know, we'll have to wait and see. But I'm curious, because there's still, like, that tension between Beth and Colette, and also, like I said, where Addie stands in the middle of this, because it's about what she wants, and, you know, wanting what she can't have in many different regards. You know, the whole thing of, like, oh, she has her plans of, like, you know, getting out of the town, getting to a college and stuff like that, but it's like working to get the regionals, but it's like, obviously that's not, because even Beth has said, it's like, oh, it's not about having fun. So it's like, it's almost like she's passing the time. She's letting life, rather than kind of living her life, it feels like Beth is just letting life happen to her. I don't know. She's trying. It seems like she's putting up this pretense of, like, oh yeah, I'm living my life, I'm having fun, but it's like I said, it's more like life is happening to her. But like I said, it could easily just be me reading too much into it. I'm really curious to see ultimately where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode, especially the Tassie situation. Like, especially if Colette keeps pushing her forward. Like I said, the other squad might be more in tune with it. The question is, how is Addie and Beth going to flow with that? We'll have to wait and see. And like I said earlier, will Colette decide to go down the route of editing the video? Like, obviously we know some of the future events, but we know little isolated elements of future events, not the particular, you know, details that led to said events that we've kind of seen. So it's definitely, like I said, it'd be interesting to see where it all goes from here. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.